Hello everyone, and welcome to today's Publishers Without Borders webinar on the Italian book market and how the industry is dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you all for joining us, and thank you to the panel who are going to give us some information and expertise on what's happening in Italy. I'm Emma House and I'm your moderator for today. Our webinar will last for an hour and we will have time for questions, so please do post these and we will ask them as the webinar continues. Please also join us on the chat and say hello to fellow Publishing Without Borders colleagues. So I'm going to start by asking each of our panel to now introduce themselves, and I'm going to start with Riccardo.
Hello, Emma. I'm Riccardo Franco Levi. I'm the chairman of the Italian Publishers Association.
Stefano.
I am Stefano Mauri. I'm Vice President and CEO of Messaggerie Italiane, who has two activities. GEMS, Gruppo Editoriale Mauri Spagnol, which is my daily activity, is the second book publisher in Italy, trade book publishing. And then we distribute 800 other publishers across the country.
Great. And Giovanni.
Hi everyone, my name is Giovanni Höppli, and I let you know that I'm married with my wife Paola, and I got 4 children and helped a lot during the lockdown period. I work at Höppli, publishing and book selling. I started 26 years ago. Right now I'm the CEO. Altogether 104 people work at Höppli. Höppli is a technical and scientific publisher. And Höppli Bookshop is a bookshop more or less the size of Hoyles at Charing Cross, with 50 booksellers altogether.
Wow, so you'll be able to give us great insight from the book selling and the publishing side of things. So welcome to you all. We're going to start off with you, Riccardo, and I know that you've just released some statistics about the Italian publishing industry. Before we move on to looking at what the sales have been like for you this year, I wonder if you can just give us a very brief overview around how the Italian publishing industry is made up. You know, what percentage roughly is trade publishing? What is STM? What is academic publishing? How is the Italian publishing industry made up?
Well, overall, the Italian publishing industry, that is by far the largest cultural industry in our country, has an overall year turnaround of roughly 3.2 billion euros.
Wow.
Of this, trade is slightly less than 1.6. Education plus academics is slightly less than 1 billion. Professional slightly less than 600 million. So overall, it's almost 3.2 billion euros.
Wow, that's bigger than I thought. So let's talk through what the impact has been of the pandemic, and I'm going to share my screen with the audience and ask you to talk us through some of these statistics. So here we go.
Well, so these graphs speak by themselves, let us say. If you just look at the charts on your left-hand side, in million euros, you have comparing with 18 weeks in 2020 with the same period in 2019 and 2018. You can see that after having grown by a healthy 2.4% in 19 versus 2018, the first 18 weeks of 2020 just show up with a terrific minus 20%. This in euros terms, whilst in copies term, more or less figures look rather alike. We are moving from slightly less than 30 million copies to 30.2 in 2019 and falling back to 24.4 in the first 18 weeks of this year. As from the point of view of distribution, where are books sold in Italy, just jump to the last chart on your right-hand side, and you will see that for the first time, the yellow line is taller than the red one. The yellow one being the one relating to stores online, whilst the red one being to bookstores. And for the first time, obviously these were the quarantine days, internet sold more than the physical bookstores.
Yeah, I see
but
that.
This is a trend that had been growing up throughout all the years, let us say. In terms of loss, in the first 18 weeks, we lost over 130 million euros, 90 million euros in bookshops, supermarkets, and stores online, and almost 45 in other bookshops, in panels, fair, festivals. So it's a heavy toll we are suffering. Well, as for the whole year, GDP decreases. I'm afraid these official estimates are rather they are not the last ones, let us say. The last figures we have point to a GDP decrease up to -12, -13, and in some cases -14%. As for the book industry, we forecast a loss ranging from 20 to 30 percentage points. That would mean on overall sales of 3.2 billion euros, something close to 650 and almost 900 million euros lost in the whole 2020. Obviously, we hope the remaining months in the year will allow us to pick up some additional sales, but this is what we can foresee at the moment.
Yeah, so that sounds pretty strong statistics for a downturn, but hopefully, as you say, as we come out of this crisis and the bookstores reopen, that we will be able to pick those figures up again. So what other impacts have you seen on the publishing industry? And Giovanni, let's come to you, because as an academic publisher, how has that impacted you?
As a publisher?
Yes.
Well, the first impact was that starting from the last week of February, the schools closed, university closed, and so the market was closing. Right immediately, in few days, the problem was distribution, and starting from the 11th of March, if I'm not wrong, bookshops were closed. So no way out, no business, no opportunities. So the big problem was to find a way where to put the production that was on the road, from the printer to the warehouses, the books that were going from one place to another, how to keep control of everything that was going somewhere. And then till now, the big problem is to work and find out solutions on the long term, but working on a daily basis. So a step at a time, but looking forward.
Yeah. And Stefano, let's move to trade publishing specifically, and talk from your experience about how trade publishers have been impacted. Obviously, we've seen that loss, but we've also seen a growth in online book selling. Could you tell us a little bit more about that, and which have been the major online bookstores that Italians are buying their books from? You need to take your mute off, Stefano.
Of course, when the lockdown started, many things suddenly changed in the Italian book selling. Starting from the authors. The authors were cancelled all their promotional tours.
Yeah.
They had a lot of time. They started to write more and better. Publishers,
That's the thing.
but they did not have the output. They didn't
Yeah.
have bookstores open. Of course, there was e-commerce, and there were some books sold in supermarkets, and that made up, I would say, 40% of the usual sales of the total market in that period, in those 2 months. But I must say that almost all the publishers stopped publishing new books.
Okay.
We did not want the party to go on as long as the bookstores were closed.
Sure.
On one side, because we didn't want to put our authors' efforts in the market in the wrong moment, but also because we didn't want to betray booksellers, in a sense.
Yeah.
E-books sold more.
Okay.
For sure, because you can buy books to staying at home in 1 second. I'm sure that also piracy grew because people felt more legitimate to do it since they had no many alternatives to that. What is left, the lockdown in Italy was March and April. In May, you could start to go. Some bookstores were the first shops, apart from pharmaceuticals and the food, to be allowed to open, and that was a very good sign, in my opinion, from the government. And also, you can see that 14 days after the opening of bookstores, COVID did not raise. So the book people is not dangerous from that point of view. And bookstores open, but still at the end of May, I would say that still e-commerce kept a share of what they earned.
Okay.
To 33 to 50%, but they still much more. They have a much larger share than they had before COVID.
Absolutely. And which are the biggest online booksellers that have benefited from this? For those of us that don't know the Italian market as well, what are the names of the online booksellers?
I'm sure you can guess the first one.
Yeah.
One is IBS, Internet Bookshop, which is together with Feltrinelli.it and Libra. It's 3 online bookstores gathered together to face the first one better, and also they grew, of course. But of course, I would say we have nothing against e-commerce or e-books, apart from 2 facts. The first is that they tend to concentrate on very few ends, and the second is that publishers are used to make a promotion through bookstores to make their authors get known through bookshops personally with the readers, and also booksellers not always buy only on the basis of numbers. Sometimes they put some passion on it, and we like it.
Yeah. And Giovanni, how was your bookshop impacted? Obviously it had to close, but what did that mean for your bookshop?
You know, Hoepli Bookshop is right in the center of Milano. So the bookshop was, we decided to close the bookshop on the 11th of March at 5 o'clock, as long as no one, almost no one was in the center of Milano. Even La Rinascente, a big shopping area right in front of Duomo, was completely empty of people. So we closed that day, the 11th of March, at 5 o'clock. And then it was possible to open only after 99 days. So
Wow.
not easy. Nowadays, we have different opening timetable, less clients. It is still difficult to understand what's going on. And you have to notice that reopening was different in different areas in Italy. As long as we are in Milano, right in the center, it took more time than other places. And you know, Milano and Lombardy. I mean, this area of Italy was amazing. In a terrible way, because the last week of March and the first week of April, everything was closed, and as Stefano said, the only way was online book selling. But again, even delivering wasn't easy, and as you know, online book selling is really very physical. So if you have places where you can't go, there is no way out.
Yeah. And Riccardo, obviously there's been a huge impact on everyone in the sector of publishing. What's the plan for recovery? What's been the government reaction and government support in Italy for publishing and book selling?
Well, the starting point you must appreciate is that publishing industry, notwithstanding the importance of books and reading in any society, never has been supported by public money. So this is the starting point, let us say. Although other areas of cultural industry, movies, theaters, music, have always been largely supported by public money, this has not been the case ever for the publishing industry. This time, though, we thought that this had to change because circumstances were so exceptional. So, joining forces with the Italian Booksellers Association and the Italian Library Association, we approached the government and the parliament asking for support for the whole industry, let us say. We didn't ask for direct support, but the support for demand, specifically for a family voucher scheme targeted on families with small children, so as to link the emergency support in the pandemia to some sort of building the future project, let us say. Everyone knowing how big is the difference in the chances for any child if he lives in a family with books or without books, let us say. And I must say that the answer from government has been, up to the moment, rather encouraging. A first help has been given to public libraries, provided they buy books directly from the local booksellers. 30 million euros, plus 10 million euros were allotted to the small booksellers. Now we hope to complete the picture with a support for demand on the private side, let us say. A support to what has been called 18 app, an application that allowed 18-year-old youngster to benefit from a 500 euros card for buying books and other cultural elements, and the family card I spoke about. And I do hope as well a direct help for the small publishers in, let us say, in the same way that has been allotted to the small libraries.
Yeah, so
encouraging, but we still have to see the big chunk of the intervention, to say.
Yeah, well, fingers crossed that you succeed in that. I think by giving the money to the consumers and making sure that they spend it on books is a great way to get people into bookshops, and it benefits everybody in the supply chain. So fingers crossed you're successful at that. Stefano, I know that you're the Italian representative on the FEP and the European and International Booksellers Federation. How has that participation benefited you and supported you in your asks from government?
Well, the FEP was I think the only thing that you could do in that moment, which was networking. It was very useful in linking together all the countries or the publishers associations and exchange opinions like we are doing now today.
Yeah.
About what was going on, what were the best things that the publisher could ask the governments to recover from this situation. And at the end, the answer was the same as Ricky says, to give grants to raise the demand of books.
Yeah.
Which is also, I see in the debates in the newspapers this day, the thing that economists ask for in general for consumption, because in such a moment with such fear and doubts among population, if you give money, they save the money, they don't spend. But we have to make the economy circulate. I mean, we are post-Keynes, not pre-Keynes. So not to spend is a fault as much as to spend too much.
And so was there any kind of government like furlough scheme like we've had here and in other countries where the government has paid the wages of staff whilst they've not been able to work? Has there been any kind of government support for that?
Yes, there has been a very informal and large, wide scale. You didn't even need to agree with trade unions. You just could put your employee in layoff.
Yeah.
Truth is that in the average, they get 60% of their normal salary from the state. And of course, we anticipated those money to them, because if they waited for the state to pay those money directly to them, they could die starving because they arrived 2 months later.
Yeah.
But this kind of layoff affects only employees, not managers, not owners, not CEOs. So before we put our employees in layoffs, we wanted the owners to guarantee they wouldn't share dividends, and CEOs and managers to give up a larger share of their salary compared to what the employees were asked to leave on the table.
Yeah.
So we created a sense of community. I mean, this is a big something big out of control that is happening to all of us. So that is the sentiment that we wanted to support us. We are facing the same danger all together, and we want to be healthy, but also not to lose our jobs.
Of course. And moving on sort of like from a European level to an international level, Giovanni, you're the Italian representative to the International Publishers Association. And we've spoken to IPA a few times over the pandemic. How have you seen the Italian experience compared to other countries, and how has Italy contributed to the IPA during this time?
Well, like Stefan already said, IPA since the beginning tried to create a sense of community, and right now is giving information about countries, markets, and so-called COVID reaction. So it's something like today's meeting, maybe more formal, but it's quite interesting. Everyone can go and check on IPA. IPA/uie.org should be something like the website of IPA, and it's giving information how different countries and markets are trying to cope with the COVID-19 emergency. How can I say? It was sad, but in the same time very useful to speak with all the colleagues, all the international colleagues. In the beginning was really difficult because everyone was just asking me, Giovanni, how is the situation in Milano and how can we survive if something like that is going to happen in our countries? And I'm really sorry because some of the colleagues really are going through something like what happened in Lombardy and Northern Italy.
Yeah.
You know, the most useful thing is giving information about take care, try to overlook the moment, and look day by day. As I said before, you must make a business plan, even for an exercise, like an exercise. You have to work for the long run, but one day at a time. I'm sorry, sounds very like an old man, but it's no way out.
Yeah. I mean, we wouldn't have thought that 100 days ago we'd be in the situation that we're in today, and we don't really know where we're going to be in the next 100 days, do we?
Or even, Emma, sorry, or even tomorrow. Think about the people in Leicester, in UK.
Absolutely.
I mean, you can have a lockdown in your area. In Milano could be again in a lockdown any time from now, and the bookshop could be locked down because we have a COVID-19. We would have, or we could have, or should have a COVID-19 mini pandemic or mini area. So really, it's really difficult. I mean, right now we have a COVID problem in Bologna with a distributor, and it's a problem if you want to distribute, because Bologna is interesting connection area, and everything could stop for 2 or 3 days or 4 days.
Yeah. And I think one of the good things that you've pointed out that's come out of this is a real sense of community and coming together and sharing ideas and sharing best practice. And that's where something like the IPA, the AIE and the FEP have been really beneficial. It's that you've got a sense of you're in this together and you're not helpless. Everyone's going through this, and you can learn from each other and share best practice. Italy's the home to many great book fairs, and you've mentioned Bologna already, and we know Turin Book Fair, and these two have been forced to cancel. What impact will this have on the Italian publishing industry, Riccardo? Let's ask you that question.
Well, book fairs and festivals account for roughly 4, 5, 6% of the market.
Right.
So it's not negligible. Turin Fair has been cancelled, and we still don't know if they will be able to organize something in the fall. Bologna has been postponed to next year. We ourselves, we have a small and medium-sized publisher fair in Rome in December, and we are in these days wondering if it will be possible for us to keep the date or to skip a whole year, let us say. So we are more or less all of us on the same boat. Everyone knows about London having been cancelled. Frankfurt Buchmesse will be holding its fair in October, but with no Americans or Canadians attending, and most likely very few coming from Asia as well. So everyone is in difficult situations and a bit at a loss in the chances for forecasting and establishing a good working program, let us say.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Frankfurt Book Fair. What's the word on the street from Italian publishers? Will there be an Italian pavilion at this year's Frankfurt Book Fair? Will Italian publishers travel?
Well, as for Italian publishers, I would like to leave the floor to Stefano and Giovanni. As from our association, we took the commitment to have a national pavilion this year, even more so as in 2023, or maybe 2024, as everyone most likely will be postponing by 1 year its participation, but we were scheduled to be as a guest of honor country in 2023. So we are starting a route that will lead us up to this appointment, and we frankly want to establish and make sure everyone sees that we are strongly committed in this direction. So we will have a national pavilion. But as I told you, from the individual publishers, better to ask directly Stefano and Giovanni.
Well, Stefano, let's start with you and talk about the impact of book fairs on your business this year and whether you'll see a noticeable impact, and then whether you think you'll be venturing across to Germany. You need to demute, Stefano.
First of all, there are different kind of fairs and festivals. There is the Rights Fair, like Frankfurt, Bologna, or London, as far as we are concerned. And then there is the fairs to the public, which are local, like Turin for Italy or Salon du Livre for France. In the first case, I think we can have a sabbatic year without suffering too much from the publisher's point of view. Especially the rights trading means like 20 meetings a day, face-to-face, of people coming from all around the world, which will spread the COVID. I mean, COVID would pay a lot of money to have this kind of meeting happen for the virus. Then readers exhibition, they are a priority for local authorities for tourism, of course.
Yeah.
Because they attract readers from all over the country. And I think that both from the publisher's point of view and from the reader's point of view, a sabbatic year would save those money that both professionals and private people would like to save in such a year.
Sure.
Because it's expensive.
Yeah, absolutely.
Newspapers and media talk about books anyway, even if there isn't a festival. So it doesn't change, in my opinion, the demand for books. So I take it with philosophy for 1 year, just see what happens and save money.
Yeah, and
money, of course. I mean,
yeah,
people in layoffs, so I don't see why we should spend those money.
Sure. And what about Frankfurt? Do you have a feeling as to whether you and your colleagues might attend?
I think we will skip this year.
Yeah.
Frankfurt is three things. It's a festival for German authors launching the big books for Christmas. Then it's an exhibition of international authors or publishers. And then is a rights fair. It's three different things. For sure, we will skip the exhibition. I don't know about the rights fair. I suggested the bookmaster to try to organize something digital for that. And I think that when they talk about having a fair spread in the city, they are speaking about the promotion of authors for German readers. I think so, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, sure. And Giovanni, what, from your perspective, will there be an impact on your business? I mean, if people aren't buying books at book fairs, hopefully they'll be buying them from your bookshop.
I do agree with Stefano, and I do believe that it is possible to make a fair even without moving from home or from the office. An example, we did the Hoepli as a publisher was able to do all the works that we were supposed to do in London.
Yeah.
So it was quite interesting for us, a good example of a different way of working. I'd love to go to Frankfurt. I wouldn't have said something like that 3 weeks ago. Right now, again, family and friends helps. Half of my family is in Firenze, and one of my daughters is in York, UK. So
right.
It is possible to travel. It's not a problem. It's just a question of be careful. Could be expensive, but depends on which car or airplane you take and how many people are going where. And again, right now I plan for a beautiful Frankfurt, but then day by day perspective.
Yeah, exactly. I think we have to wait and see. It's a long time between now and the Frankfurt Book Fair. So, Riccardo, coming back to what you mentioned earlier about small publishers, I know a recent article suggested that over 75% of Italy's small publishing companies could go out of business. To what extent do you think this is realistic, and what are the key schemes that might stop this from happening?
Well, we ran a survey of our own on small publishers, and 8 out of 10 replied that they could not discard the chance of closing the shop. Almost 8 out of 10. What could help? The major thing that could help would be this demand support we were speaking about earlier on, and there is some chance that we could afford in obtaining from government and parliament a small direct help for small publishers apart from the support of the demand, let's say. But obviously they are the fragile element of the book chain, and so
yeah, sure.
So is the same, I imagine, both in Italy and everywhere else.
Absolutely, and I think those are the ones that really need some help. But
let me add one thing just to give you the whole picture of what happened in Italy in the quarantine days. All families with a youngster attending school or university went through an extraordinary experience that was distance learning. And obviously this was allowed by PCs and all the new technologies, but at the center we had textbooks. And
absolutely.
So textbooks and books were part of the daily life of Italian families throughout the quarantine days.
And what we saw here in the UK, and I don't know if that happened in Italy, but a lot of the educational publishers that publish for the curriculum ended up giving away a lot of their digital resources for free. And a recent study showed that around £30 million worth of resources were given away for free during the pandemic. Did Italian publishers react in the same way?
Well, yes, and even more so, there was a huge amount of digital material that was afforded to pupils. You must know that due to the Italian law, all textbooks, practically all textbooks, have the digital version as well, let us say. So every textbook is carrying an enormous amount of digital educational content. This was obviously afforded to all pupils in Italy, starting from 5 and 6 years old to university students.
Giovanni, you want to add to that?
Correct. We did that. The Italian academic and school books publishers did that.
Yeah, and so do you think that that will have a lasting impact in a positive sense? I know the debate that we've been having with the educational publishers in the UK is by giving away a lot of that materials for free, you'll hopefully create some goodwill in that moving forward they'll purchase more digital materials, but at the same time they've got used to getting them for free.
Emma, for sure helped in the moment. So it was the right move in that situation.
Yeah.
And it was not a business move or thinking, I'm losing or I'm earning. It was the right thing to do in that moment. Otherwise, the teachers and the pupils, the students were not able to study as
Absolutely.
they did. It was distance learning. Sounds very interesting, but it's not really. You can't say it's university or it's schools. So the publisher tried to help with digital contents, and that's it.
Yeah. Well, I hope that the market does come back for you, and that the goodwill that's been generated by giving away the content for free pays back in sales of not only digital materials but print materials moving forward. Certainly in the UK, school budgets are going to be really hampered by the need to spend more money on cleaning and extra staff and maybe even extra buildings to observe social distancing. So the impact on the budget available for resources could be impacted. But I think it's a real priority for schools to have good resources.
The priority was to help, and we did it.
Yeah, you did it. Exactly. So during this time, Stefano, you touched on this earlier, that writers have had more time to write during the pandemic and come up with quicker schedules for writing their books. During this time, have you had the opportunity to look for new authors, read more books, and even sign up new books for the future? Has that helped, having that time?
Well, first of all, I had the opportunity to make more phone calls to the authors. We had more time to listen each other. But during working time, really, I was not relieved at all, because together with the normal tasks, we had to update weekly, every week update at least 1 or 2 months of schedule of publishing ahead, depending on the new laws coming out about restriction and so on our work and on bookstores. So managing the health side was an extra job for managers. We are about 800 people, all living between Milano, Lodi, Pavia, Bergamo. So almost all of them taken by surprise in Europe, because we must say that Lombardy has been taken by surprise. It was like Poland for Hitler, Lombardy. So others had time to react like the rest of Italy. But 1 week ahead for Lombardy was fatal, was terrible. What makes all the difference. So we were in the center of this situation. I think we had more time to read in April, but in March we were linked to the information daily, or we were working to balance the situation. I must say that with 800 employees, and one positive in 800 people was without consequences anyway, was our best success at the moment. Then we invented some non-for-profit. Among all the laws, there has been a law by which any company who did give money to help an hospital, those money were like the proper activity of the company, so they were costs like every other cost. So you could give money to the hospital. So we put together some operation with authors to sell ebooks, and all the earnings from those ebooks, even the Amazon share or the IBS share or the bookstore share, went to the hospital. So we were very happy to fill our time with that, exactly in the moment that Giovanni said, last week of March and first week of April, which was really the deepest point of the hole in which we were falling. But if I must say, yes, I read more, but my private activity that increased more was cooking.
Yeah. What was your lockdown speciality?
I extended my range of dishes on the fish side, which I were not used to.
Well, that's good. In the UK, we all were baking banana bread, which wasn't very good for our waistlines. So I think fish is okay.
Fish is okay. It's healthy.
And Giovanni, anything to add to that? Did you spend more time reading or looking for new authors, or
no, unfortunately, sorry, Emma, but unfortunately, like Stefano said, so 114 days ago, when everything started, maybe 2 days before, 120 days ago, it was really such a big mess, and it's diplomatic to say mess. I mean, it was so really difficult that what I really need now, I'd like to have a week off and sleep for a couple of days without any ringing phone. And about reading, the only opportunity was Ken Follett. I mean, the book should be a book really about something different, not real life. Otherwise, day-to-day work was really killing the fantasy and any hope. And as I said, on the other hand, you absolutely must work for the long run on a day-to-day basis.
Did you have a lockdown dish that you perfected?
I left these kind of problems to my very old children, and I was just vacuum cleaner. It's very, very helps a lot. What are you doing? I'm cleaning.
Yeah. Okay. And how about you, Riccardo? Did you cook or learn anything new?
No, I'm not. I'm not a chef. I'm just. I love eating vegetables and fruits, but it's not for me for cooking. My wife is very good at that.
Oh, good. So you have a cook in the family, which is always helpful. Absolutely. Going back to the subject, 2 weeks ago saw the launch of the new Italian Books website, which was a great initiative. I wonder how this is going to work, and also I believe new translation grants are going to be available. How will they work, Riccardo?
Well, this is a new initiative, or better said, it's going back to an old initiative that frankly wasn't so successful. So now we are trying to relaunch it with the Treccani Institute and with the Ministry for Foreign Affairs and the Center for Book and Reading in Italy. The aim is to have a internet platform, let's say, for Italian books, Italian rights, obviously, to show off new Italian books on the international market. And we hope it will be accompanied by some success, and we will be working on that direction. But it's still in the making, let us say.
Okay, so there's a website, New Italian Books, that we can go to see the new literature that's coming out of Italy.
Yeah. It will be ready in some time, let us say, but
okay,
it's still in the infancy.
It's in its pilot stage. And translation grants, is there anything you can tell us about translation grants available?
Well, this is not a great story on the Italian side, let us say. Translation grants have always been rather scant in Italy, but prospects now are more favorable, and even more so looking at our participation as guest of honor in Frankfurt, be it 2023 or 2024, a substantial amount will be allotted to translation grants from now up to that date. And so I hope that will be rather helpful for all the Italian publishing industry.
Yeah. And I always like to end these sessions on positive notes. So if you were to look into your crystal ball, and I'll start with you, Stefano, so you can think, what do you think the next 6 months looks like for you and your company?
Well, I think, yes, I agree with you. We cannot do this job if we are not optimistic. It's impossible to be creative and pessimistic. And, well, I think we will recover part of the books that we did not sell in March and April along the summer for many reasons. First of all, because, as I said, in April, people got more familiar with reading books. Italians are very social, but if they cannot go to the restaurant and have meetings, they must choose among the other options. And books are one of the options.
Yeah.
Also, in August, wherever you go in the world is full of Italians because they all go on vacation in August. A lot of them go abroad. This year, most of them will remain in Italy. So they will be able to buy books in the Italian bookshops. And that will be another reason to
celebrate and to be optimistic.
About Christmas. I mean, I can't imagine the crowds you usually have in December in the bookstores with the social distance.
Yeah.
That is more worrying to me. And also, as I said, the writers had more time. Some had new ideas, so they wrote 2 books instead of the one we expected, and some refined better and better their work in this period. So, as I already said earlier, we are expecting incredible readings.
And so that's a couple of things to be optimistic about. Lots of new books, lots of new good books, and Italians staying in Italy, and so shopping in Italian bookshops.
Yes, exactly.
Giovanni, does your crystal ball tell you the same thing?
I do believe in Stefano. It's my only optimistic way out to the question. I strongly believe in everything that Stefano said. And thank you to Publishers Without Borders. I mean, everything helps. And when someone like Stefano has always been like that. When someone like Stefano is able to say something like that, I just believe in what he said, and let's go on.
Riccardo, what does your crystal ball tell you about the Italian publishing industry in the next 6 months and the priorities for the Italian Publishers Association?
Well, however could I say anything different from Stefano, looking so optimistically to the future? As for the association, well, our main goal is to make sure that books and reading and education as well take a central role in the political agenda of the country. Because unless we lift the educational level of the whole Italian country, it will be a problem for us, so to say. And I hope this, from this terrible pandemia crisis, from this point of view, maybe something good will come out. Let's say everyone understood, for example, that school is a priority, and
Absolutely.
I hope we'll go along with this.
Yeah. And just to leave us on a final note, we always like to ask our panelists to recommend some books to us. So either a book that they've published or a book that they're reading or a book that they're looking forward to. And for our Italian audience, which books would you recommend for the summer, or for our publishers that are interested in translating Italian books, or if there's a book that's already been translated? But give us some names of some good books and authors we should be reading right now from Italian authors. Stefano, let's start with you.
Okay. When I was saying that authors had the time to refine better their works, I was thinking of Ilaria Tutti's last novel, which is in the top 10 today. We just published it. She is a crime writer. She was crime writer of the month for the Guardian once. Her first book was Flower Over the Inferno. But she is a crime writer, and this new book is not a crime book. It's much more, as we know, because we already read it. Foreign publishers are reluctant because it's not a thriller, but it's much bigger, this book. The peculiarity of Ilaria Tutti is that in each book, the characters are in a situation matriarchale, where women are in command for some reason. And that makes these books very original. And also this one, the last one, which is not a thriller, is about an incredible story of First World War. Italian soldiers were up in the mountains, and they were, and the Austrian soldiers cut off the lines of food and ammunitions to Italians and weapons. So Italian soldiers were isolated. So a group of poor women from the valley, who were the ones who knew the paths to go up the mountain without being seen by the enemy, helped these soldiers by taking up food and weapons and taking back corpse. And they became a sort of war corps, informal war corps during the war, and it's a very emotional storytelling, because it's very epical. It's very touching. So very good for this moment, I would say, to give courage.
Very much so.
Teach how resilient you can be in any difficulty.
Absolutely, very topical. Giovanni, what about you? What can you recommend for us?
Well, I'm recommending these two titles that we translated in Italian. The first one is Il Tempo della Terra from Marta Bjornerud. Timefulness, how thinking like a geologist can help save the world, Princeton University Press. And if it is possible, there is a second one. The second one, I really love it, is from Dave Goulson and Sting in the Tail, published by Jonathan Cape in UK, and renamed Il Ritorno della Regina in Italian. And it's really helpful. I mean, you look at animals, you look at the earth, and you try to cope with the reality. Then right now we are looking for a publisher who would like to translate a history of disco music, because it's funny, but till now no one ever published a disco music encyclopedia, just disco music, nothing else but disco music. And it's a really successful book last year, and we would like to do something out of Italy with this book, with this title.
Well, I think you've definitely touched on a soft spot for Prashant, who's a big fan of disco music.
A soft spot helps a lot in this situation.
He will find you a publisher. Riccardo, any final thoughts from you on books that you'd like to recommend?
Well, it's not for me to recommend any book of a specific publisher. Let me have a way out from this question, just telling you what were the foreign books I read in the last couple of weeks in the quarantine. As a Churchill fan, I read two beautiful biographies on Churchill. One, The Splendid and Vile by Erik Larson, and Churchill Walking with Destiny, a magnificent biography by Andrew Roberts. And I'm halfway through The Mirror and the Light, the last book from Hilary Mantel on Thomas Crawford.
Very good, very good. That's a very good pandemic read. Well, we could carry on this conversation for a long time, gentlemen. It's been fascinating and very good to hear that you're being optimistic, and I hope that your sales do pick up for the second half of the year, and that you're successful on your family voucher scheme. I hope that comes through. That will be a big help, I know, to everyone. And I hope that the Rome Book Fair can go ahead in December as well, and that we can start getting back to meeting each other in person and not just remotely on a screen. I think that's a moment we're all looking forward to. Molte grazie to all of you. Thank you for joining us, and stay safe over the.
Thank you to Publishers Without Borders. Thank you, Emma.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.